Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. You gotta cheat to win. You gotta cheat to win. If you wanna win, you gotta cheat. You gotta cheat to win. Yes, our drama teacher used to sing that song to us on the bus every time we went to district or state level competitions for drama. You gotta cheat to win. And I cheat. Probably not the way you're thinking, though. And that's what I want to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders. Stay tuned.
Master the story power method to captivate your audience, improve workplace culture, and 10x your fundraising.
Scan the QR code to book your first coaching call or visit storypowercoach.com.
Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at storypoweracademy.com for leadership development and communication skills training.
I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. And okay, I admit it, I cheat. I mean, just a little bit. And it's not the kind of cheating that you think when I say I cheat. It's not like I break the rules. Some people, in fact, might even not call it a cheat. They would call it a hack. A practice behind the scenes that gives you an advantage. Michael Jordan, for an example, he used to say all the time, if I went into the gym and the guy that I'm playing against has better talent, he's stronger, he's faster, he makes more shots, the one thing he won't do, the one thing I will not allow him to do is out-practice me. I will practice until he leaves the gym. I will practice until he gives up. If he's at one end of the court shooting threes, I'm at the other end of the court shooting free throws. When he's done with threes and goes to free throws, I'm going to go to threes. But I'm not quitting until he quits. You're not going to out-practice me. That's Michael Jordan's philosophy. Might be one of the reasons he's considered by many one of the best of all time, the GOAT. One of the things that I've learned in years of presenting, let me take that years of presenting and throw that on the table like a pickup sticks or 52 card pickup, because I started presenting, speaking in public, sharing ideas when I was 7. Then I had no idea what it was all about or what it would turn into, or that it was a thing other than anti-boredom. Because I really found myself bored a lot. I would line my stuffed animals up beside the house and talk to them. There was a time that I was grounded. I wasn't allowed to talk to anybody for a week. And so for a week, I talked to my grandpa's truck. I stared at the little moon bubble hubcaps on the side of that truck. You can reach out to Tommy Wilson and Quentin Crenshaw if you think I'm joking. They're both on my Facebook page. One of them was there with me when we had a contest to see who could punch the biggest dent in the little bubble hubcaps we had to replace them. The other one was there with me when we got in trouble for that. And so I had to spend a week talking to that hubcap, which was kind of cool. It's like staring into a parabolic mirror. You see yourself like in a fun house. But I learned that I could have a conversation conversationally with vocal tonalities and things of that nature. Before I knew what any of that was, I just knew that I could have an interesting conversation when there was nobody else around, which is very helpful right now. Because I can't see another face. I can't see another human. And it would be really easy for me to drone on like a robot. It would be very easy for me to read from a book and try to over-dramatize the wrong words and the right words. But I've been doing it for 50 plus years now, having a conversation when it appears that I'm the only one in the room. I know it's not true. But if you don't learn to communicate in that way, then communicating from a stage, communicating in front of a camera, communicating in a relationship by phone, communicating in a relationship by blog becomes a little more complicated. Many people, for lack of a better term, shame themselves for talking to themselves. And the problem with that is they don't just get the practice of hearing their own voice out loud. I can't tell you how many coaching clients I've had say, don't record me because I hate the sound of my voice on video. So what you're really saying is your message, the thing you need to say, the stories you need to tell, the lives you're assigned to transform while you're on this earth are not as important as your own ego, your pride, your arrogance, your self-confidence about the quality, the tonality, the sound of your voice. At some point, you're going to have to get over it, or you're going to have to pick another career field. Because if you don't like the way your voice sounds on a video camera, on an audio recording, you're in the wrong business. Life transformation is not for you if you can't get past your own hangups. Now, another one of the things that I deal with on a regular basis with my coaching clients is another one of those areas where I cheat. I started with this conversational style when there's nobody else in the room when I was about 7 with my teddy bears and, well, hubcaps. But see, as time has gone on, I've realized that there's more to it than that. Sometimes it's physicality, and it's vocal projection, and it's, do you wander around a lot? I don't have Obi on today. Obi is my AI camera who follows me around the room. Obi's not set up right now. So the cameras that I have, they have a narrow field of view. They know where I'm standing. They know how to keep me in the center of the frame, because that's the way they're aimed. This one is aimed to keep me in the center of the frame, even at that angle. And this one is aimed to keep me in that center, even when it's a tight shot. And the one next to it is aimed to keep me in the center of the frame, even in the long shot when you've got the broader studio. And this one up here is aimed to keep me in the center of the shot, even though it's aiming down. This is one we use for a 2-shot, our wide shot, when we have a guest in studio. And see, all of these elements, I have to be cognitive. I have to be aware. I have to, at minimum, subconsciously know that if I step over here, I'm out of the frame. Now, when you're on a stage, your ability to pace, to wander, to anchor is a huge part of the awareness. I was at an event several months ago. I watched one of the coaching instructors who was coaching people on stage presence say to them, this is the sweet spot on the stage because this is where you're closest to the audience. And I don't disagree with that. Being closest to the audience where you can almost reach out and touch them really changes the energy level. In fact, when you're designing an event stage, one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they put a lot of foliage on the front edge of the stage. They want to decorate it. They want it to be pretty in the photos. They want everyone to see it. But every plant, every foliage, every decor, every giant sign of letters, I've seen all of it, that you put at the front of the stage is a subconscious physical barrier. It's a physical barrier because you can't just reach out and touch someone without reaching over this thing, but subconsciously, it's like the king on the throne. It's like the Congress where you get to sit in the galley, but they're down on the floor where they can handshake and talk to each other, and you can't touch them. You can't be near them. You're just not good enough. See, every time you add another layer of foliage or a sign or a banner or a whatever on the front of your stage, you remove that. It's why some people say, I don't want a platform at all. I don't want to be a stage. I don't want to be elevated. I don't want someone to think that I think that I'm more important than them. Okay, get over yourself for a minute and understand that the stage isn't what does that. It's the barriers that you place in front of it. And the positioning of that stage for a clear view. That's what the stage is for. You can go way, way back. Even the people who just did street preaching. They called them stump speeches when they were politicians. They called them milk crate sermons when they were preachers. Because literally, they'd carry their Bible in a milk crate. They'd walk out into a field. They'd put down the milk crate, and they would stand on the milk crate so that if more than 20 people gathered around, everyone could still see them. It wasn't about elevating them for the purpose of their admonition or admiration. It was about, I can't see. Zacchaeus climbed up in a tree because he can't see. The elevated stage, the lights that are shining in your face. There are a lot of people that come to this studio right here. You can see right now there's light coming. If I put my hands in front of my face, you'll see there's shadows in every direction. There's lights up there, there's lights over there, there's lights over there, there's lights over there, and I feel like the genie on the magic carpet. You can exit any way you want to. There's a light there. If the lights bug you, understand the lights aren't about you. The lights are so that the people can see you. So several months ago, the stage manager, the coach that was training people to manage the stage, said, go to this sweet spot. It's the closest to the audience. I don't disagree. Be as close to the audience as you can. That's the best way to communicate to the audience, to make sure that the audience is aware that you care about them, that you're connecting with them as individuals. The challenge was, in that particular arena, we had the same camera setup we have now. We had 5 of them. We had one over the shoulder, so that when the person on stage had gestures that included the audience or people stood to applaud, that we got that shot as well, so we could see how the crowd was reacting. And we were filming in all of those cameras, but we didn't have OB set up. We just had the still cameras. And the challenge with that advice was the camera can't see that spot. And when you're talking about a recorded event that's going to be played back later, or a live stream event like this one right here, if you walk out of the range of the camera, you just messed up the whole thing. Walking out of the range of the camera doesn't do any good. Maybe you connected with the 3 people sitting in those 3 chairs right there at the front of the room. Yay! But the 5 billion potential people watching on Meta don't have a clue what you just did. So who was that for? Now, when we teach people in Story Power Academy, one of the things we do intentionally when you come to the retreat, when you join the Story Power Authority, the Story Power Authority program literally puts you on half a dozen stages. It puts you right here in the studio for a full day. And the stages that we put you on are so you can understand how it feels subconsciously to stand on a stage that's 60 inches tall in front of a room that could hold 4,000 or 5,000 people. It changes your subconscious delivery. That versus a room where you're standing on the floor and there's 10 or 20 people around, versus a room where you're standing on the floor and there's 20 or 30 people around, or 50 people and they're eating lunch. See, each of these different things changes the way you present. The challenge for a lot of people is they have one speech, one script, one story. That's it. That's all they got. And when you try to take that one speech, that one script, that one story from one environment, from one stage to another, maybe you've choreographed in your head, when I say this, I'll walk this way, like a one-act play. When I say this, I'll walk this way. I'll turn my body this way. Now, you can probably tell a little bit that as I rotate my body, my audio goes down. I can see the audio meter right there. Now, watch what happens when I turn my body back this way and I just keep talking at exactly the same volume. See how much louder it got? That's because the mic's right here. Now, if I am talking this way, that's a balanced talk. If I had an overhead boom mic, that would be different. If you ever watched the Sean Ryan show, early in the show, they had 2 shotgun mics on a boom above the audience. And what would happen, you could hear it. When Sean would say, I have a gift for you, and he'd reach down, he'd turn his head away from the shotgun mic, which has a very specific pattern. He would reach down and grab his gift for them, and his voice would fade by about 60%. And when he leaned forward to give the gift and shake their hand, his voice would fade by almost 80%. Well, he wasn't talking quieter. It wasn't like he was saying, no, that wasn't it. It was the unawareness that the technology had a purpose, and his gestures were defeating that purpose. In order for you to master your presentation on various stages, you have to be subconsciously aware of those things. If you watch any of the big players, a John Maxwell, a Brian Tracy, a Zig Ziglar, Tom Ziglar, one of the first things they do when they're about to present is they get in the room as early as they can, maybe even before the sound system is set up. They walk to the place that they're going to be presenting, and they speak to hear the sound of their voice. Do I have slapback? Do I have echo? Is this a place where nothing has carpet, nothing has fabric, everything is glass, steel, and tile? Because my voice is going to sound different. And what if I put it through a microphone? And oh, by the way, what kind of microphone do you have? I just spent an hour on the phone with a client last night. We hope to do some speaking and training and coaching with his team later, but our entree into that is audiovisual. And he said, well, normally we just do X, Y, and Z. I said, let me just throw a little caveat in there. If you've got a panel, one of the hardest things to control is people taking the microphone and tap it against their hand, or just waving it around like a laser pointer, or they can't shut up, even when it's not their turn to talk. They want to interject a joke. They want to steal the spotlight. They want to upstage whoever's talking. And so I recommend when you do a panel, the moderator has one and everybody else on the panel share one. because you can't control some of those other people. Now, if they're trained professionals, you're talking about a bunch of journalists or media professionals or professors, you can put a podium mic in front of them that will start talking when they start talking, or you can line them up, but you're talking about a significant investment in audio-visual equipment. I don't recommend putting a mic in the hand of everybody on a panel. I just don't think it's a good idea. All of this goes to your stage presence. So how do I cheat? Well, I cheat in that I own the AV company, I own the media company, and I spend a lot of time on the stage. I see that opportunity from all of those directions. Where are you going to stand to connect best with the audience? Well, who's your primary audience? Is it the people in the room today, or is it the ones that are live? If it's both, play to both, speak to both, think to both. We recently filmed 2 different courses right here in the studio. Actually, yeah, 2 different courses. The first one, we didn't have a guest audience. I stood in front of the black wall. I spoke directly to the camera because I knew the people taking that course were the people on the camera. They were the only ones, just who's watching it virtually. The next one, we filmed right here in the studio with the studio audience. A dozen or so people sat in the audience. And the first time, we used only that camera. And so camera 4 saw me from that angle, but it didn't see me when I talked to the crowd. It was at an angle shot. My bad, my flaw. So I moved the camera into the back of the crowd. So yes, there was crowd in the shot, but there was also a direct shot of me, and it gave the impression to the viewer of the course that they were in the classroom. Not just talking to a camera, but in the classroom. Not being recorded by accident over the shoulder while in the classroom, but actually in the classroom. As an AV guy, I should have known better, but I was thinking more about the content. I cheat. I get the advantage of doing that again. That would have cost somebody else $5,000 to come into the studio to record that class and then realize those cameras were set up wrong. I have a client who recently did a fundraising talk, and in front of the crowd, in her words, they raised more money for that event than any record that had ever been set by the organization. They were so impressed that somebody asked her to speak at the state capitol, on the steps of the Capitol. She couldn't make it for that, but they used the video from the other talk and put it on the Jumbotron for 1,000 people out in the parking lot to see. Here's the challenge. She paid 4 figures for that video. And the person running the video couldn't keep her in the camera because we had blocked in her speech body gestures. Who do you talk to? Where are they going to be? And she didn't have an OB. She had a human trying to run a camera who couldn't keep up. That's not a good thing. That's a very frustrating thing. I cheat. I cheat because I own the AV. I've seen these best practices. I know how to make the mic sound good. Recently coached someone who was about to go on the stage. She said, I just need a mic. And I'm like, which one do you want? Do you want a handheld? You want an over the ear, or do you want a lapel? She said, well, what's the difference? I said, the handheld allows you to control the volume simply by pulling the mic away or putting it up close. So if you want to be louder without raising your voice, or if you want to raise your voice because it changes the sound of your voice, but you don't want to overload the microphone or the speakers, you can simply move the handheld mic to do that. That's hard to do with the lapel mic. It's impossible to do with a headset mic. See, I could just turn my body away and talk over this shoulder because I know I'm about to say something loud, but now I've moved my mic out of the path of my breath. I could go back this way and whisper, and I know that my voice is going right into the microphone because it's right there. I cheat. For her, she had big dangly earrings on. I said, I suggest you not use this microphone because the guy that has the beard, it sticks in his beard. So it stays put. It doesn't make any rubbing noise. The earrings will click on it. It'll sound like there's something wrong with the audio. No, it's just hearing your earrings move. But you've got to prepare yourself for the stage, depending on, is it this microphone, the one in your ear, or the one in your hand? You've got to know that as a speaker. How does it change some of the things that I plan to do in my blocking and my positioning? Am I going to walk out of range of the camera? If I talk to an individual down here, are they going to be recording my ear? As you move about the stage, you've got to know that. Now, there are 3 things that I mentioned: the power of the open positioning, commanding a large audience, and the anchor versus pacing. Again, I don't have OB set up, so moving around in the studio, not a good idea. It's really easy to walk out of camera. But I hope you got the picture when I was saying that it's easier to walk out of the frame than you can imagine. And if you're only in the zone in your head talking to the 10 or 20 people in the room, rather than all of the people who will be watching later, you're probably going to miss something. Now, I'm not saying don't connect with people in the room. In fact, one of my current clients, who's in the Story Power Authority program, was here in the studio the other day for about 2.5 hours. And their primary question when they came in was, what does it mean to read the crowd? I said, well, there are a lot of different ways to read the crowd. You can study Chase Hughes, Andrew Bustamante, Chris Voss for what does it mean to read a person, their body language, their tonality, their eye movement, interrogation style. What does it mean to read people? Right? And you can get some great information from that. But part of reading the crowd is understanding, do you have their attention, or do you have engagement? Attention and engagement are completely different. And knowing what your intentionality is for the crowd changes the way you talk to them. It changes the way you connect with them. It changes who you choose to focus on. See, one of the challenges, especially a larger crowd, and I've done crowds of 15. In fact, in about half an hour, I will be in front of a crowd of probably 50 to 60. It's another little cheat that I have. We have a network meeting right here in our little hometown that meets every Friday, almost every Friday, like 50 Fridays out of the year. And on that Friday morning, I think the lowest I've ever seen is 32. The highest is almost 60 people show up, and everybody gets a minute or two in front of the room to tell about what's going on in their world. It is a phenomenally good place. I challenge all of my clients. Go to Rise and Grind. Stand up there in front of that room, 50 or 60 strangers. They're a very hospitable group. They're very graceful. They'll give you a lot of grace to make mistakes. But if you've never been in front of 50 people with a mic in your hand, it could be a little nerve-wracking. But if this is what you plan to do with being a communicator, an influencer, world changer, leading the narrative, if that's your intention, that's a great place to start. Toastmasters, a good place to start. But your network meetings, that's a good place to practice with low risk responsibility consequences, to demonstrate what you're working on, your material, your content, your sales pitch, whatever it is. I recommend Story Power, by the way. Greatest tool you could possibly imagine. How do I know? Because I practice it every week. It's another one of my cheats. But see, if you learn how to handle that crowd when it's a small crowd, 50 or 60 people, for some people that's a large crowd. I know churches that have been going for 5 or 10 years that still would love to have a crowd of 50 or 60 people every week. Just saying. But I've also spoken in front of crowds of 40,000. And when that crowd level changes, 20, 50, 200, 500, 1,000, the way you keep their attention changes. The amount of attention that you can keep changes. The distractions change. Their attention level changes. The reason they all got together can also be a huge factor in whether or not you keep their attention. And if you're in front of a crowd, I've been there, in front of a crowd of 1,000 people, where I knew this was probably the most radically diverse crowd you could possibly imagine. Age range, purpose. The reason they were there was a graduation. All of them were singularly focused on their loved one graduating and walking across the stage. I had the beauty of the opening keynote speech before the graduation. You know how much fun that is? 1,000 people in the crowd who really just want me to be done so that they can move on. The only way to engage with them was to talk about them. And I did, because I followed John Maxwell's advice. I walked slowly through the crowd beforehand. I had firsthand stories of the people in the audience who were graduating that day that I had used Story Power to craft into my speech in the 1 hour gap between them getting their gowns on and me getting on the stage. That's a skill set to learn and master, my friend. But see, that's way more than just reading the crowd, looking in their eyes, watching their body gesture, seeing if their arms are crossed. It's way more than that, and that's why Story Power Authority exists. But see, there's something about that ability to understand who the crowd is that allows you to speak to a large crowd. I also knew I was recording that event, and that 4, 5, 10, 15 years from now, it still is. Kaplan College commencement, still on my YouTube channel. You'll know because the thumbnail screen is me on the stage with all the blue up lights behind me. My 12-year-old son at the time was the videographer, so it's been a minute. I was not nearly as practiced. It was one of my first ever keynotes in front of 1,000 people. I was a little nerve-wracking. I had fun with it, but I didn't do as good as I would do today. I think it would be completely different if I did that same talk again today. But I still practice some of the same principles then that I teach my clients now. Know where the camera is, know where the lights are, know how to handle the microphone. Have stories in your pocket and the ability to craft a story on the spot if you must. But see, you can get the attention of people in the room where they turn to look at you because of a pattern interrupt or because you raise your voice or you stomp your feet. Or you can find those people that are deeply engaged, eyes wide, focused on you. They're listening to every word or they're taking notes furiously. And that engagement is worth more than the attention because a clown on a unicycle can get attention. A lot of people can act silly on the stage and get attention. If you just have an applause meter, you can get attention, but engagement is so much more valuable. Engagement is what leads to sales opportunities. Engagement is what leads to relationship. Engagement is what, wait a minute. You don't get married until you get engaged. Engagement leads to relationship. Engagement leads to transformation. Because transformation doesn't happen with relationship. Relationship doesn't happen without engagement. Get them engaged, build a relationship, then you can bring transformation. Getting attention feels good. It doesn't do that. I hope you're learning something today. I told you I cheat. I own the cameras, I own the microphones, I own the studio. We do our own live events. And so when I go to do a live event for somebody, whether they pay me to bring in the AV or they pay me to stand on the stage, I'm going to put all of those bits of understanding, knowledge, and experience into play. I want to know where the cameras are. Are you recording this? If not, why not? If you're not recording because you don't want anybody to have access to it who didn't pay to be in the room, I get that. But what about the other people presenting? Is there a chance they want that? If you don't want to live stream it, that's fine. Maybe they want to sell this content behind a paywall later. But see, the difference between those two is going to change how I present on the stage. Am I only ever talking to the people in this room today? It's the only chance you get. You better be very personal. You better make movements in the room that engage the people in the room. Nobody outside is ever going to know anyway. The higher level of engagement you have in a room like that, like this next event that I'm going to today, there's no recording. Nobody will ever know that I was up there except the people in the room. What does that mean? I have to highly engage with the people in the room. I have to focus on the fact that they're here and the people who are not will never know. You've got to have those things in your mind. You can't be a one-trick pony with one story, one choreographed presentation, one way of moving across the stage, because the mic may change that. The proximity of the speakers for someone who doesn't know what they're doing. Client I was coaching last night talking about the kind of mics that they wanted to use. He said, well, our system only runs like X, Y, and Z. Immediately, I knew the kind of sound system he was using. It's not mine. But the sound system he's using means those speakers are going to be really close to the stage, and a good wireless mic that gives you a lot of range is going to create some feedback. Because people are notoriously going to walk in front of the speakers so that they can command more attention, not engagement. They're not video recording, but they're audio recording. And if they're audio recording and you get feedback, you've trashed your audio recording. Do the mic handlers know that? I mean, they may be great in their service field. They may be great at their job. They might even be a great presenter. But if they don't understand how the technology plays into that, where's the camera? Where do the lights come from? What happens when I try to keep the light out of my eyes? I mean, what exactly? Okay, I can see the crowd better now. But you can't even see my eyes. Who wants to make eye contact like that? Nobody. You've got to be aware of all of those things when you take the stage. How do you manage the crowd? How do you position yourself on the stage or in front of the camera? How do you position yourself with the audience? Which audience are you most engaged with? The one that's in the room today or the one that's going to see the recording? All of those things are critical. Now, I know I've given you a whole lot of information today. I know that I've given you some tips and some tricks that honestly would have cost you thousands just to figure out. And I know you think I'm making that up, but go out there and hire someone to do your AV who doesn't know about platform speaking, and you're going to get a different result. You're still going to pay them $5,000 to $10,000 or more. I know some of these events that lights, video screens, cameras, microphones, recording, 30 grand, easy. Come into a studio, $1,500 a day. That's just the way it works. But if you go not prepared, if you're not trained for that, you could be wasting a whole lot of money before you get any results. Ask the number of people who paid to be in a podcast studio and they don't do a podcast anymore, or they bought all the equipment and it's for sale on Facebook now. 20 years of experience in AV, 20 years of being on the stage, 20 years of speaking. And I can tell you there's a whole lot that goes to that from every angle. And if you don't master all of them together, what you're going to get is a broken disaster. Sad part, you won't know it's a disaster until it doesn't engage with the audience you intended it to. And you might think it's your sales process. You might think it's your product. You might think it's your presentation style. And it could be any and all of those together. And it could also be that you're not integrating with the technology to the maximum benefit. Look, you can go to Story Power Academy right now, click on the button that says Story Power Authority Program, and that program can change your life. You'll be in some intensives, you'll be in some cohorts, you'll be involved in some training and some one-on-one coaching that will take your communication level to a whole new level and put you in front of some tools that will change the way you communicate. If communication is important to you, if leadership is important to you, communication is important to you. If those two things are important to you, I challenge you to go to Story Power Academy right now, storypoweracademy.com. You got to put the www in front of it because my domain host is a Yahoo. But when you get to that website, scroll down until you see Story Power Authority Program, click on that, get signed up, and we'll see you in the program. Nothing has the power to change your life like a word that rings forever in your heart. Those are my words. But somebody more brilliant than me said, be brief, be bright, be done. I am. Thank you. Have a blessed day.
Think storytelling's just for bedtime? Nah, it's the secret sauce for business magic. Stuck in a rut with bland pitches and yawning clients? Enter Boost Your Business with Story Power. 6 weeks of epic storytelling training. It's like leveling up in a video game but for your career. Master the art of narrative and watch connections blossom like a viral TikTok. Simple, impactful, and game-changing. Ready to transform your biz vibes? Dive in now and make storytelling your superpower.
This 6 weeks guided program is specifically designed for those people who say, I know I need to tell stories. I need to tell better stories because the ones I have are boring or they're not getting across. Or as John Maxwell says, everyone communicates and, well, few connect. Now, as a participant in this course, what I would really love to know from you, put it in the discussion on the course if you're already registered online. Send me a chat, send me a DM, send me a text, send me an email. I'd really love to know what you hope to get out of this course. Now, I can tell you what we're going to discuss, and I can tell you what I plan to teach and train you on, and I can tell you even what we plan to discuss each week on the calls for the next 6 weeks. I'm going to go over all of that for you in just a moment. I can also tell you that my clients who get the greatest success are the ones who apply the Story Power process to their business development to increase their impact, their influence, and their income. Now, the Story Power process includes story mining, story selection, story qualification, story crafting, connecting with your audience, and leading the narrative. And if you leave any one of those parts out, you're going to find that, well, you're just not as effective as you want to be. You're not going to grow your business to the same level. You're not going to lead with impact and influence like you hope to. I can also tell you that the people who apply these things, well, they're not failing in their business. The reason a lot of people fail in their business is they continue to fail to connect the solution they offer with the problem that their clients have. The pain and the solution never come together. And a lot of that failure is because they're not clearly articulating how their solution solves someone else's problem. It comes down to a question something like this. Who do you help and how? Yes, that's one of the first things we're going to discuss over the next 6 weeks of Boost Your Business with Story Power.
Master the Story Power method to captivate your audience, improve workplace culture, and 10x your fundraising.
Scan the QR code to book your first coaching call or visit storypowercoach.com.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.